Hi everybody. Today we're here to answer the question of what are chronic diseases? What should I do about them? What does self-management with chronic disease mean? I'm Pamela D Wilson. My website is PamelaDWilson.com. On there it is your virtual home for caregiver support. You'll find hope, help, support, articles, podcasts, videos, a lot of information. I ask you, press those buttons below. Follow my YouTube channel, share this video with other people that you know who are looking for hope, help, and support. So let's talk about chronic diseases. Chronic diseases affect you, the caregiver, your elderly parents, your spouses, your family members, everybody. Now, if you're a young caregiver, you might still be healthy and not have any of these issues. You may go to sleep, get up the next day, have abundant energy, you're excited about life. But as caregiving goes on, week after week, month after month, year after year, and sometimes decade after decade, yes, caregiving can last 20 years or more. Eventually, all that stress related to being a caregiver, all those things that you do, catches up. By the time most people are 40 or 50, most people have a chronic disease. What is that? It's things like high blood pressure, diabetes, a breathing problem like COPD, asthma, or something else. Now, for caregivers, it's usually all the emotional stress that begins to take a toll on your life that causes these chronic diseases later, right? Maybe you feel moody or angry or frustrated or agitated or resentful. Or maybe you're just joyful and happy about being a caregiver. There's good and bad, right? But the problem is, these emotional stresses link to sleepless nights, eating junk food, that bag of potato chips that you crave, or maybe it's a bag of M&Ms. All these other habits that are not good for our health come from stress in our life. So there's another thing called caregiver denial. That's where you think that you're the only person who cares. You have to do it all and you don't need any help, right? Well, that not asking or not accepting help leads to doing it all by yourself and ignoring self-care, like going to that doctor appointment that you know you should schedule, but you don't have time. You stop exercising and you stop doing all of those things that are really good for you. Now, there's a term used by healthcare system providers called self-management of chronic disease, and it's gaining popularity. Self-management means that family members become involved in the self-care of family members with chronic disease. Now, so this might mean, for example, like participating in an educational program about managing arthritis or heart disease or heart failure. Now, the challenge in these self-management programs is that there has to be interest by the family member diagnosed with the disease. And even more importantly, the person who's going to help them has to have a really good relationship with them. Now, if you're thinking what I'm thinking, self-management sounds a lot like being a caregiver. So I wonder, is the healthcare system using self-management to avoid using the word caregiver, because sometimes being a caregiver is seen as a negative, stressful thing? Well, it is, right? Having a health condition can be seen as a negative, stressful thing if you don't put it into a positive perspective. So let's talk about these relationships for self-management, or maybe it's really caregiving. Do you have a good relationship with your parent or your spouse or the person who has this chronic disease? Can you reinforce the importance of them taking action, seeing the doctor, taking their medications, exercising, without being viewed as someone who nags or somebody who looks to be over-controlling? Now, there is a study from the California Health Foundation about all of this. If you're watching this on my YouTube channel, down below I'm going to put a link to the page on my website so that you can actually read this information, because you might find it helpful. I want to share a statistic. So in the research that this California Health Foundation did, 39% of adults with chronic conditions over the age of 44 said that they rarely or occasionally got much help in understanding how to manage this chronic condition. Now that's common because, remember, the healthcare system is complicated. They use words we don't understand. They don't have time to spend with consumers to talk about all these healthcare issues, right? So what I find interesting is that in this survey, 70% of those adults with chronic illnesses said that they want support from their family members, but they also report that they don't want to put stress on family relationships in ways that cause problems. So what might that be? Well, it could be really simple things that all of us do, right? Let's say that you have an elderly parent living with you or you live with them, and your parent isn't supposed to eat, say, a lot of salt because they have high blood pressure or heart disease. And you're living there and you don't see yourself as the caregiver, but you go to the grocery store and you bring home all this salty stuff, potato chips, salty snacks. And over here you have your parent who's looking at all those snacks thinking, oh, I'd love to have some of those. Well, should you, as the dutiful helper of self-management programs, give up things that you love to eat? Well, maybe if it's also good for your health. Let's say that your parent would love to have you exercise with them, but you get home at night, you live in your own home, right? You got kids to take care of, you got a husband, you got to make meals, and your parent would love to have you over there, but they don't want to impose because they realize that it takes time away from your family. So they don't exercise, right? Or maybe a parent has asthma and you go over to the house and you don't realize it, but you're wearing perfume that irritates that, or maybe you actually smoke a cigarette and that causes problems. So there's all of these lifestyle things that happen with chronic diseases that we don't realize unless somebody points it out, right? There's things that we as the person who's diagnosed should be doing or not doing. We as the helper or the caregiver should be doing or not doing. So in listening to all of these things, really, for self-management, I really believe that this is all about caregiving. Now, it's okay that California doesn't want to call it caregiving because it's still education. And one of my goals, my mission, my hope is that everyone takes an interest in their health and in education to manage chronic diseases, because the things that cause you problems later in life are chronic diseases that affect you mentally and physically and require a lot of care from your family. So let's ask about how family involvement can help. So according to research, again, people with chronic diseases still live pretty independently. So maybe your parent has a chronic disease, but they still work and they do a lot of things. Well, the idea is that that person gives you permission to remind them to say, hey, are you taking your medications for that? How's that going? Did you go see the doctor? Are you exercising and doing all the things that you're supposed to? And the idea is that they agree that when you ask those questions, they're not going to feel nagged or bothered. Sometimes they still will, because we all do. None of us want to be told what to do. So let's go back to these family interactions. Emotional stress, caregiving, causes health problems. Emotional stress is significant for caregivers, and it's significant for the person who has a health issue because you're worrying, oh my gosh, is it going to get worse? Well, probably, unless you take some action. So at this point, if you're a person who has a chronic disease, realize that in a sense you're a caregiver for yourself and your family members. If you ask them to help you with this or to learn about it or remind you about things, they're your caregivers. The beauty, the amazing thing of all of this is you're looking down the road, right? You're going to be able to avoid all of those crazy things that people who never talk about this are surprised with when it happens. You won't be that adult child whose parent calls you out of the blue saying, oh my God, I've had a heart attack and now I need a lot of help, because you will have caught these things earlier and managed them. And even more, it's important to talk about the whole caregiving path when these issues arrive. If you don't know how to do that, go to my website, click on the Caregiver Program link. It's in pink. It's on the main page. You'll get to my Caregiver Program that teaches you how to talk about all of these things so that you can avoid health issues later in life that cause significant needs for medical care and caregiver care, and possibly having to move out of your home into a care community or a nursing home. So when we link the idea of self-management of chronic disease to caring for ourselves, to caregiving, we can move ahead in life and make plans that most people don't even think to talk about until a health disaster has happened. I'm Pamela D Wilson, caregiving expert, advocate, speaker, educator. A lot of help, so much help on my website, PamelaDWilson.com. It's a virtual home for caregivers. You could spend hours there. Press the share button on this video, follow me on YouTube, and share this information with other people that you know who are looking for hope, help, and support. Have a fabulous day today. I'll see you all again soon in another video.